It started with the cold. Not the kind that creeps in through windows or settles in your coat, but something bone deep, like the land itself had decided to forget warmth. I came up to the cabin for solitude, nothing more. No phone, no service, just four walls and the woods. The kind of silence you have to earn. I didn't come to run. I came to stop. The snow started early, but I was ready for that. What I wasn't ready for was the stillness, the kind that feels like listening. The cabin groaned the way old wood does when it remembers something. The trees outside stood too still. The first few nights, I told myself the noise was wind. Then, maybe a fox, but on the fifth night, just past midnight, I heard it again, not a growl, not a whisper, but something low and slow and hungry. It didn't knock, it didn't scratch, it waited. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, waiting for light to return so I could trick myself into calm. The cold didn't leave with the sun. It lingered, settled deep into the corners of the room, like smoke from a fire that never burned. I made tea, but the kettle hissed like it didn't want to be touched. I drank in silence. Even the birds had gone quiet. The snow outside had smoothed itself out. No tracks, no breaks, just a flat white sheet like untouched memory. That day I chopped wood for no reason. I didn't need it. I just needed something to break. Something that wasn't me. The axe sank into the logs too easily. By evening, my hands were shaking not from the cold, but from the feeling that something was watching and not blinking. I checked the locks again. Every window, every door. I placed the kettle on the stove and turned off the lights early. But the dark didn't feel like sleep. It felt like waiting. That night, the sound came closer. Not louder, closer. I felt it beneath the floorboards, like something heavy walking barefoot through my memories. The fire cracked once, too sharply. I stood. The cabin shifted. Not the structure, but the air. Something inside me whispered that whatever was out, there didn't need to break in. It only needed me to let something out. I thought about leaving. Thought about packing what little I had and heading into the snow. But the thought died fast. You don't run from something that watches. You sit still and hope it gets bored. At 3:47 a.m., I saw the shadow pass the window. Not fast, not slow, just steady. A glide more than a walk. I didn't breathe. My reflection in the glass looked too calm. It didn't blink when I did. That was the first time I felt it wasn't outside. It was behind the walls, in the grain of the wood, in the spaces between my thoughts. The cold pulsed, a dull pressure behind the eyes. I walked to the bathroom and washed my face. The water smelled off, metallic, like memory. I stared into the mirror. My eyes looked dull, like they'd been staring too long, like they were seeing something I hadn't caught up to yet. I turned off the tap, dried my face, and found a single strand of coarse hair in the towel, gray, too thick to be mine. I burned it in the stove, watched it curl, then vanish. I didn't sleep. Again, morning brought nothing new, just more stillness. A fresh layer of snow, too perfect. I stepped outside to breathe and found footprints, one set, circling the cabin. Barefoot, deep, spaced too far apart to be human. I didn't follow them. I just went back inside and bolted the door 3 times. The cabin creaked like it disapproved. I lit every candle, sat in the center of the room with the axe across my lap, and whispered my own name aloud, just to remember what it sounded like. The name felt too sharp on my tongue, like it didn't belong. I waited for the knocking. It never came, because it didn't need to knock. It already knew I was listening. The 6th morning began with silence too complete to feel real. I had nailed the door shut the night before, pressed furniture against it, as if distance mattered to something that had already made a home inside the walls. But when I woke, the door was slightly ajar, not wide, just enough for a whisper to pass. The nails were bent outward, not pulled. I didn't say anything, didn't scream. I just stood there and breathed. One long breath in. No steam. The cold had gone beyond the air now. It was in me. I made tea out of habit, sat by the stove. The fire refused to catch for a while. When it did, it burned fast, like it wanted to finish something. The woods outside didn't move. I pressed my hand to the window and saw it. A circle in the snow, a perfect ring surrounding the cabin. No trees, no branches, no animal dared step past it. I didn't remember making it. I didn't remember dreaming it. But it was there, untouched, clean, like something had landed and stayed. That night, I slept with the axe beside my bed. I lit every candle I had. The cabin glowed like it wanted to be remembered. The walls creaked differently now. Less groaning, more breathing. Like the house was holding something back. I sat in the dark and listened. I heard nothing. Then, slowly, I heard a sound like fur brushing wood. A weight dragging low across the floor, just outside my room. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I closed my eyes. And then came the whisper, not a voice, a memory, not spoken aloud, but felt. I remembered my father's voice, my real one, the way he said my name before the accident. A sound I hadn't thought about in 15 years, and I realized whatever was out there, it wasn't trying to scare me. It was trying to feed, not on fear, but on memory, on the warmth of things I thought I had buried. I heard antlers scrape against the roof, not heavy, delicate, measured, like they were testing how far they could reach before the wood broke. I stayed in bed until light. When I stood, my footprints were already in the snow, leading away from the door, into the woods, barefoot, deep. I didn't follow them. Not yet, but I knew I would. Because the thing outside didn't ask. It waited, and I was already halfway into answering. The 3rd week blurred. Time lost its edges. Morning didn't mean sun. Night didn't mean dark. It all folded into one slow breath, held too long. I stopped checking the clock. I ate what I had to. I slept when I could. But the woods didn't care. They kept getting closer. Not in distance, but in presence. I could feel them leaning in. Every branch outside the window felt angled toward me, like 1,000 crooked fingers pressed gently against the glass. The ring in the snow never broke, but the wind changed. It began to speak, not in words, in rhythm, a low, slow pattern like heartbeats in reverse. I stopped lighting the fire. It wouldn't matter. The warmth didn't stay. It recoiled. I paced the cabin once, twice, then again, only to realize I had left a trail of wet footprints across the wood bare. I didn't remember taking off my boots. I didn't remember getting them wet. That night, the mirror warped. Not the glass, just the reflection. It blinked when I didn't, tilted when I stood still. I whispered to it. It smiled, just enough. Not malice, recognition. I looked away. And then it happened. Just after 3 a.m., the wind fell silent. The candles stilled, and I heard it, my voice, from the tree line, not shouted, not broken. Calm, measured, calling a name I hadn't used since I was a child. The one my mother used when I scraped my knees. The one my brother used when he laughed too hard. That name hadn't been spoken aloud in over a decade, but it came clear and quiet from the dark between the trees. Come here. My voice, not a recording, not a trick. The cadence was right, the warmth in it. The part of me I thought had died when the last person who remembered it did. I stood at the door, didn't open it, but I didn't move away either, because the Wendigo doesn't chase. It reminds. It reaches through memory like fingers in warm water, gently pulling at what still floats. That night, I dreamt of antlers, endless, bone white, crawling across my ceiling like veins, and eyes mine blinking too late, watching something leave my body that I wasn't ready to lose. I left the door open, not in defiance, not in surrender, in understanding. There comes a point where silence stops being absence and becomes invitation, and I had crossed that point days ago. The air didn't move, the snow didn't stir, but something changed. The cold no longer bit, it welcomed. The chill I had feared had settled into my skin like memory. No longer something I wanted to escape, but something I wanted to carry. I stepped out barefoot. The ground didn't resist. The snow didn't crunch. It parted, softly, like it had been waiting for me to stop pretending I was ever meant to resist it. The trees leaned slightly inward, branches arching like cathedral beams above me. Not threatening, witnessing. And then I saw it. Not all at once, just enough. The edge of a figure, antlers too long, bent wrong, a torso that shimmered like heat through fog, limbs that moved with hesitation, as if remembering how to be flesh. Its face didn't twist, it didn't snarl, it didn't glow, but it remembered. Eyes that did not reflect the world, they recorded it. And when I met them, I saw myself, not now, but then. Hungry, lost, cold in places I couldn't name, It didn't step forward. It didn't call me. It didn't need to, because the Wendigo doesn't pursue. It waits until you bring yourself. Until the ache inside you no longer feels like a wound, but a direction. Until your loneliness folds into appetite and your guilt begins to whisper with your voice. I took one more step, just one. And in that moment, I stopped feeling the cabin behind me. The warmth I'd failed to keep. The memories I had tried to bury. And I knew this was not possession. This was return. The Wendigo wasn't taking me. It was holding what I had already given. The woods accepted me with a stillness that didn't need permission. I became part of the pattern. And now, sometimes, when the snow settles and the wind falls quiet, hikers say they hear a breath just behind them, steady and slow, like someone keeping pace. And sometimes they say a voice calls to them, not loud, not urgent, just familiar. It uses their name, the one no one else knows. And if they turn around, there is never anything there. But the wind always carries forward, because once you've heard the Wendigo remember you, it means you remembered it first.